Hey guys, my name is Joey and I'm from the UK and this is Lionito. So this is my channel in which I will be speaking about varying health matters from my point of view, but also things I've seen over the years and definitely things that I've experienced. So this channel is really, to promote awareness, and I called it the Neverland Diaries because me and Lionito are definitely very childish in our ways, and there's definitely a lot of things that I want to talk about, but I really want this to be a page, a video blog, podcast, where people can share their experiences, and maybe some of you can relate to a lot of the things that I talk about. So that's my introduction, okay? And I'm going to go on to the first podcast, which actually is about what I like to call the Peter Pan syndrome effect. And this is something that I suffer from greatly, and also I think it's something that a lot of people can relate to. You hear it thrown around as a psychological term, but some people will dismiss it, okay, and just call them a man baby or childish. But really what Peter Pan syndrome is that perpetual feeling of not wanting to deal with adult life, having anxiety about getting older, running and not coping well with situations which you face as adults, and often it's caused by childhood trauma. And I'm going to tell you my personal experience with how I feel like it has affected me. So I'm 28 now, hopefully I don't look it, but it's funny because when I was a teenager I was very, very shy and very quiet. So in school I was always living in a daydream, like a wonderland. So it made me very creative and I always got really good marks, but my communication skills were always terrible and I ran away from social situations. Now, as I got older, I started to seek validation and attention from people. Initially through MySpace. Remember MySpace? Oh my god, that seems like so long ago. And then Facebook came along, MSN Messenger, all these things, the selfie world, Instagram, and then the world of apps. And through this, would seek more and more validation. And still, until very, very recently, when I deleted my Instagram account, I was in that mode, the feeling of wanting to be popular, to be liked, and to keep living this sort of young college boy dream of partying and not growing up and not dealing with adult responsibilities. Like if I had a problem, for example, with my flat, I would leave it. If I had something to do, like renew my driving license, because I live actually in Madrid. I'm from the UK, but I live in Madrid. That's why it's sunny, not raining. But basically that meant that I anything adult-like I would avoid doing. It gave me anxiety, and a lot of it I think comes down to the childhood I had. I had a very abusive father, especially when I came out at 16. He physically assaulted me and mentally assaulted me all throughout my life. All the time I'd get comments like, why'd you walk like that? He cut my internet off when I came out as gay. At the time I came out as bisexual, not to face so much judgment. And so those years living at home in the UK, I felt like I was very trapped. I felt like I was very boxed in. And that meant that I really, in college, I would really try and fit in. I remember I changed my hairstyle to someone I found attractive. I would always want to be the most popular kid. It was like all I thought about. Like I wanted to be really popular, and I wanted to be the center of attention because I'd been so shy all my life, and now in college I could play a different person. But that feeling never went away, and through my late teens, as I went on to university, and then afterwards I was kind of stuck living this straight life, and I feel like all that time that I was in the UK, I was just stuck, you know. I didn't want to be there, first of all. I wanted to grow up and be a music producer. It didn't work out that way. You know, I ended up here in Madrid, and Madrid's had everything really brought to the surface for me. I can say I'm now in therapy. I can say that, you know, I can admit that I am someone who suffers a lot from this feeling of being stuck in this childishness. Now, in my relationship, I finally got a relationship 2 years ago with a very nice guy. However, any argument or conflict I would run out the door from. I would not speak about things. I would stomp my feet sometimes like a child. And before that, I should tell you really the story of coming to Spain. So when I came to Spain at the age of 25, it was like I was 18 being released, you know, the uni parties, the partying, and it spiraled out of control really. Was out 2-3 nights a week, even 4 nights a week, just going out constantly. And I didn't want to deal with anything. It was like I was on holiday, everything's the best. And, you know, I ended up blowing through all my savings that I'd saved to come here. And not dealing with responsibilities. Like, I didn't even get my my doctor's medical card done for a long time. Life for me was just one big party, seeking validation, because I'd never had validation. And I really wanted this validation and attention, and I'd never had it. And suddenly I was getting it. And so it was like something I wanted more and more of. However, as time went on, you know, too much going out, and adult life hitting you in the face started to make me increasingly depressed. By the autumn of that year, I was feeling pretty bad. And then I met my ex. And I met my ex actually in a very bad place. We had a lot of conflict at the start. I ended up in hospital at one point. And it was a terrible time to look back on. And after that, you know, the relationship, it was very much like he was my dad and I was his son. And we would argue so much. And I would really respond, looking back, like a child, like really childish reactions, which I still have now to things. When I'm hurt, my reaction is to be like really, like a kid stomping, like with a toy, like, I want it now, and really childish reaction. Or I get very upset, like, you know, those childhood deep sobs. Like, I will go to that place of being extremely hurt and upset, and it's very difficult to deal with. And Lionito's witnessed all of this, haven't you? So, yeah, that's one of the things that I've noticed. The other thing is a terrifying fear of growing older. I do everything to look younger. I take every serum, collagen powder, every vitamin, and I take anything that I can find to try and look younger. I microneedled my hair when I started to lose my hair. That was like the worst day ever. I was crying when it started to recede. And I would microneedle my hair 2 millimeters deep and it would bleed, and then I'd put minoxidil on it. I took finasteride, which really affected my mood. And I've stopped taking it now because it was making me very depressed. And so self-conscious with my image. I wanted to look like a teenager. I enjoyed, you know, I still enjoy, I want to look young. You know, I want to look like someone who's still 20, 21 all the time. I try and do my hair and dress like I am that. And, you know, I still come across like that sort of person. I have a lot of creativity, but the things I find funny are very childish. I enjoy going to the theme park, and it's very hard for me to not want to go back to that party life after quarantine. It's going to be a struggle, for sure. And it's very difficult, you know, when you've lived a life where I would say I spent many years not being me. Suddenly having the chance to be myself much later, I think, is how I developed into not developing into an adult, if that makes sense. And I know I'm trying to express myself right now very eloquently and adultly, but it's very difficult for me actually to do that. And to be honest, you know, I jump around and get excited over things like, I mean, little music videos, and I hate the thought of getting older. Like, I've had thoughts in the past of committing suicide at the age of 40, that I'm going to be alone forever, because who would want to be with someone as childish as me? I've had terrible feelings from this where I just feel like I run away from social situations, for example, with colleagues, or other situations I've been invited to, because I feel like a kid. Like, I always feel like my colleagues would try and mother or father me and treat me like, oh, little Joey. So I would always feel like, oh, my colleagues would try and father me or mother me like, oh, little Joey, little Joey. And yeah, it's very frustrating. And I'm going to show you now also the things that I would do for Instagram or Facebook to try and look young. And this is an example from today. A picture I took originally and a picture after. All the effects that I would do to try and look younger. Because this happens a lot now. There's the pressure of airbrushing, and a lot of us feel the pressure to look younger and affect our photos in many different ways. And so this is an example. So first of all, this picture is me naturally. As you can see, normal picture with all of my moles, my wrinkles, my original hairline. And then after, so you can see I've airbrushed everything. I've even changed my hairline. I've manipulated all of the moles off my face, and I've also toned my skin. I've done so many different things to try and look young. So that is something else that happens. The pressures of social media force us to want to stay younger, because, you know, especially with dating, it gets increasingly harder as you get older, and you feel the pressure, you know, you have to be young, especially in the gay community. And this is the other thing, like, gay community is one of the most superficial, shallow communities that you can find, and you get judged entirely on your looks. If you don't look like a perfect sculpted, you know, muscle man, then people are not going to be interested in you most of the time. And you know, I'd really take it out on myself. I would go to the gym 7 times a day. I'd hike 30 kilometers. But that's something which I want to discuss more in another podcast. Really, today is about the Peter Pan syndrome. So yeah, another thing with Peter Pan syndrome is not being very aware and not being very good with my adult situations. And by this I refer to, you know, situations where I've had to deal with real adult stuff, like my parents getting divorced, breakup, had to deal with living on my own. Now, when I moved into my flat, I live alone. I didn't know how to use a washer. I didn't even know how to turn the water on. I didn't know how to do anything. I was completely clueless. And until I was with my ex, I did nothing to that flat. It was just a complete mess for a year. I broke the chain on the toilet. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't call the landlord because I have extreme anxiety, and I was always at work, and I was always hungover from partying. I didn't deal with anything. You know, like I said, with my ex, ran away from every problem, every situation like a kid. I'd disappear and go to friends' houses and come back days later. And any problem that I had, I remember when I had to go to hospital with rhabdomyolysis, and I really did not want to go. I was going to just sit in bed, even though I was on the verge of death at that point, and I was just going to sit there and not go, because I really did not want to deal with it. I didn't want to have to go to the hospital and deal with it in Spanish and face that this was happening. I never want to deal with situations that are bad or toxic or no one does, but adult situations that are hard to deal with, like I don't know what's going to happen with Brexit. This year's been horrific, and during the quarantine I lost all of my friends due to my outbursts, because I have a flat with an interior patio, and it was flooded, and so I was having manic outbreaks, not being able to go out. Like, this is so unfair, like I want to be out in the sun, like I want to be out walking, like I can't believe this is happening, I have black mold. Like, I was going crazy, and all of my friends were like, you're acting like a spoiled kid, and I got so many insults about my mental health. But I did act like a child over that situation, because for me to be stuck in a flat with black mold, which I hadn't sorted, again another thing I should have sorted, but it got worse because of all the rain in Madrid in March and April. So that's another thing. It can affect us in a lot of ways. So basically what I'm trying to say is, there's an element of me that really enjoys this sort of Neverland aspect to my life, trying to be Benjamin Button, but I know I can't. But I take everything to try and stay young. But mentally, to grow up is very difficult for me, and I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know if I want to do all of it. Like, I really enjoy some aspects of being kind of like the boy who never grew up, but there's other aspects that really affect my relationships with adults, and they affect them very badly, and it stops me from having a stable relationship. It stops me from having stable friendships, because a group of adults, like if someone says, oh, I want to go out for a dinner, I'm like, oh, that's boring. I would rather go to a party, and I shouldn't, like nearly 29, I shouldn't want to be partying anymore. And after the quarantine, I can say that the feeling is a lot less, isn't it, Lionito? Which is good. Now I'm more connected with nature, and maybe I'm learning some life lessons, and I'm focusing my creativity on this podcast and music editing and video editing and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, there's moments where I'm like, I'm never going to fit in with anyone. I'm never going to have a good group of friends, because no one accepts me as I am, because I'm like a kid. And people don't always want to be around that. Like, when people are now my age with babies, settled down in houses, or with full families, and here's me, like, still, with Lionito, going to theme parks when I can, and wanting to travel around, jump in the lakes, and not really care about like anything serious in life and deal with anything. Like, I really just don't want to deal with anything ever. I always want my life to be like with rose-colored glasses, and life isn't like that. You have your ups and your downs, and with Peter Pan syndrome, you can't always be on and up. So that's my first post. Okay, basically what I wanted to say was that this is something that a lot of us actually suffer from, and I was wondering what your opinions are or experiences are with it, because everyone has a slightly different experience, although we may have similar symptoms. So my experience may be very different from yours, but I may have a lot of the same symptoms. So that's me, Joey, my first vlog from Joey's Neverland Diaries. I'm going to be talking about a lot of mental health issues, particularly within the gay community, and but also generally with men, from loneliness to the world of social media and apps in more detail. And there's a lot of things that I want to talk about, but this is kind of my opening post. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. and say bye to Lionito. And thanks for watching. So thanks from Joey and Joey's Neverland Diaries. Bye bye.